Spokesperson for the US State Department Ned Price has revealed to the world a piece of intelligence gathered on Russian plans in Ukraine.
We have previously noted our strong concerns regarding Russian disinformation and the likelihood that Moscow might seek to create, a false flag operation to initiate military activity. Now, we can say that the United States has information that Russia is planning to stage fabricated attacks by Ukrainian military or intelligence forces as a pretext for a further invasion of Ukraine. One possible option the Russians are considering, and which we made public today, involves the production of a propaganda video, a video with graphic scenes of false explosions depicting corpses, crisis actors pretending to be mourners, and images of destroyed locations or military equipment, entirely fabricated by Russian intelligence. To be clear, the production of this propaganda video is one of a number of options that the Russian government is developing as a fake pretext to initiate and potentially justify military aggression against Ukraine. We don't know if Russia will necessarily use this or another option in the coming days. We are publicizing it now, however, in order to lay bare the extent of Russia's destabilizing actions towards Ukraine and to dissuade Russia from continuing this dangerous campaign and ultimately launching a military attack. Russia has signaled it's willing to continue diplomatic talks as a means to de-escalate, but actions such as these suggest otherwise.
Associated Press reporter Matt Lee was listening very carefully to the spokesperson's exact words.
So you said actions such as these suggest otherwise, suggest meaning that they suggest they're not interested in talks and they're going to go ahead with some kind of a... What action are you talking about?
One, the actions I've just pointed to. The fact that Russia continues to engage in disinformation campaigns.
You made an allegation that they might do that. Have they actually done it?
What we know, Matt, is what I have just said, that they have engaged in this activity, in this planning activity. But let me because obviously this is not the first time we've made these reports public. You'll remember that just a few weeks ago.
I'm sorry, made what report public?
If you'll let me finish, I will tell you what report we made public. We told you a few weeks ago that we have information indicating Russia also has already prepositioned a group of operatives to conduct a false flag operation in eastern Ukraine. So that, Matt, to your question, is an action that Russia has already taken.
It's an action that you say that they have taken, but you have shown no evidence to confirm that. And I'm going to get to the next question here, which is, what is the evidence that they... I mean, this is like crisis actors, really? This is like Alex Jones territory you're getting into now. What evidence do you have to support the idea that there is some propaganda film in the making?
Matt, this is derived from information known to the U.S. government, intelligence information that we have declassified. I think you know.
Okay, well, where is it? Where is this information?
It is intelligence information that we have declassified.
Well, where is it? Where's the declassified information?
I just delivered it.
No, you made a series of allegations and statements.
Would you like us to print out the topper? Because you will see a transcript of this briefing that you can print out for yourself.
That's not evidence, Ned. That's you saying it. That's not evidence. I'm sorry.
What would you like, Matt?
I would like to see some proof that you can show that
Matt, you have been
that shows that the Russians are doing this. Ned, I've been doing this for a long time.
I know, that was my point. You have been doing this for quite a while. You know that when we declassify intelligence information, we do so in a means. We do so with an eye to protecting sources and methods.
Is not going to fall. I remember a lot of things. So where is the declassified information other than you coming out here and saying?
Matt, I'm sorry you don't like the format, but we have declassified.
It's not the format; it's the content.
I'm sorry you don't like the content. I'm sorry you are doubting the information that is in the possession of the U.S. government.
I'm sorry that you are doubting the information that is in possession of the US government, says the US government spokesperson. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm incredibly grateful at least someone is questioning that information. Two things of note there, which Matt Lee expertly honed in on. The first, the spokesperson's elision from planning a disinformation campaign to actually engaging in one. And second, the fact that the spokesperson provided no evidence for anything he said. We are supposed to take Ned Price and the American intelligence services at their word. Anyone who followed the build-up to the Iraq war will know that's a very dangerous thing to do. Of course, much of the media has been willing to repeat the charges made by Price and even go beyond them. The New York Times led with this headline: US exposes what it says is Russian effort to fabricate pretext for invasion. Now, to me, an effort is a lot more concrete than a plan that hasn't yet been realized. It sounds like an action, something that's actually happening. Similarly, here's the headline in the Times. They say Vladimir Putin's staged atrocity plan to justify Russian invasion of the Ukraine. And we can see here also The Guardian. Russia plans very graphic fake video as pretext for Ukraine invasion, US claims. Now, in both cases, what was presented by the spokesperson as one amongst many possible actions has been upgraded to a firm plan. The verb plans has a sense of a clear intention to make the particular video that was described. And a reminder, evidence supporting any of these claims has yet to be seen. Liz Truss, Foreign Secretary of the UK, also released a statement. She says, "This is clear and shocking evidence of Russia's unprovoked aggression and underhand activity to destabilize Ukraine. This bellicose intent towards a sovereign democratic country is completely unacceptable, and we condemn it in the strongest possible terms. The UK and our allies will continue to expose Russian subterfuge and propaganda and call it out for what it is. The only way forward is for Russia to de-escalate, desist, and commit to a diplomatic pathway." Here, what was one possible plan amongst others becomes underhand activity to destabilize Ukraine. Now, of course, I don't want to suggest that Russia isn't capable of misinformation campaigns or false flag operations, but Matt Lee was absolutely right to press the spokesperson so hard because, as he says in that clip, he remembers WMDs in Iraq. In the case of that war, the claim that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and was prepared to use them was a major component in the case of the illegal war conducted by the US and the UK. And the media then, rather than investigating the claim, jumped on the bandwagon. In 2004, the New York Times had to issue this apology for its coverage in the run-up to that war. We have found a number of instances of coverage that was not as rigorous as it should have been. In some cases, information that was controversial then and seems questionable now was insufficiently qualified or allowed to stand unchallenged. In fact, the New York Times published at least 28 articles containing false information and banging the drum for war between October 2001 and March 2004, and they were far from alone. What's more, it isn't like the US is a stranger to misinformation. In 2016, it was reported that the Pentagon had paid UK PR firm Bell Pottinger $540 million to run a covert propaganda campaign following the invasion of Iraq. They created news packages in the style of Arabic news agencies and also made fake Al-Qaeda terrorist videos that could be used to track the people who viewed them. When Matt Lee asked the hard question of the State Department, this was the response.
What is the evidence that you have that suggests that the Russians are even planning this?
Matt,
I'm not saying that they're not, but you just come out and say this and expect us just to believe it without you showing a shred of evidence that it's actually true. Other than when I ask, or when anyone else asks, what's the information? You said, well, I just gave it to you, which was just you making a statement.
Matt, you said yourself, you've been in this business for quite a long time. You know that when we make information, intelligence information public, we do so in a way that protects sensitive sources and methods. You also know that we declassify information only when we're confident in that information. If you doubt the credibility of the US government, of the British government, of other governments, and want to find solace in information that the Russians are putting out, that is for you to do.
There is a very recent history, if you want to look at the war on terror, of journalists forgetting what their role actually is. So instead of scrutinizing absolutely every piece of information that comes their way, no matter what the source, and making sure that the public gets the most rigorously verified material possible, during the war on terror, there was a sense of a salon culture being cultivated between pro-war think tanks, politicians, aides, journalists, and what you might want to call thinkfluencers. So there were sort of regular parties being hosted where you'd find Christopher Hitchens deep in conversation with somebody from the State Department in the US. This was fairly common. And it's, I think, easy to forget just how outlandish some of the claims being printed in legitimate establishment legacy media were at the time. There were claims that Saddam Hussein had mobile chemical laboratories making weapons of mass destruction on the back of trucks. And they were driving around the desert completely mobile. Now, of course, there was absolutely no evidence of this ever found. And just hearing it, that there are mobile WMD laboratories on the back of trucks, just seems completely, farcical, fantastical. But that's what was being pumped out into the public sphere. And just from my own standpoint now, you can see that some of these networks, very hawkish, liberal or neocon journalists, that those networks are being fired up again with regards to Russia and Ukraine. Now, I'm not saying this, and I also shouldn't have to say this. I'm not saying any of this because, deep down my, darkest desire is to see, Putin take over Kiev. But it's, I think, deeply sad that journalists who want to scrutinize pro-war narratives, pro-intervention narratives, have to in some way argue for their own sense of, patriotism, loyalty, or saying, no, I'm not actually a stooge of the Kremlin. I just think that we can't trust what's coming from our own governments in some cases. But the same networks are being fired up. It was really striking to me. I was on Moral Maze a couple of weeks ago, and it was Anne McElvoy and Matthew Taylor, making these very hawkish cases for intervening in Ukraine and against Russia. And I just thought, oh my God, everything old is new again.
It's worrying, isn't it? And you do see the media they don't seem to have learnt very much at all. Like on that run up to the Iraq War, there's a really good book by Robert Draper called To Start a War. And in that, what's super interesting is the way that the intelligence services were told, look, you missed 9/11. So what you now have to do is imagine constantly what could possibly happen. So they sort of set up these working groups where you have to think of all the possibilities that could possibly damage American interests. And then what happens is that group which is working out possibilities comes to mean, oh, we have intelligence that this crazy thing is going to happen. And then the media end up reporting that there are, as you say, mobile units housing weapons of mass destruction, which is why the inspectors can't find them because they're constantly moving. And that was just a complete fabrication, which managed to sort of stretch from being this thing that we've imagined, or we've got some source who happens to hate the Saddam's regime and wants to install a government of their own tutelage. And then it just gets reported by the media sort of unquestioningly. Super worrying. And why, I'm very grateful for journalists like that man from the Associated Press we just showed you.